In around 2013, I began to really tussle with the literature on epigenetics. What struck me was the bulk of that literature was coming out in oncology, and the tumor microenvironment takes over gene expression, and particularly DNA methylation. Very simply, a methyl group, carbon and three hydrogens, when there are a lot of methyl groups on a promoter region of a gene, generally that gene is turned off. Conversely, when those groups are removed, that gene is on. Cancer, kind of the tumor microenvironment sort of wipes off a lot of methylation. So it turns on genes willy-nilly, but then it shuts off almost important genes that we want on, genes that protect us. So what happens is this kind of disorder of hyper and hypomethylated gene patterns. That same kind of occurrence happens in all of the chronic diseases of aging and in aging itself. So as I metabolized this, I wondered, what are we doing? What are our interventions doing? Are the interventions in functional and naturopathic medicine always supportive of the best genetic expression? Or could we be pushing things forward unnecessarily so? Could we be contributing to imbalance? And that became a huge question for me. Sometimes I think if we're dosing up excessively on isolated B vitamins, it may not always be the best idea. And so to that end, in our practice in 2016, well, even before then, we created a diet and lifestyle program around optimizing DNA methylation. Nowhere in the literature is there any suggestion that excess leafy greens is going to cause cancer, right? It's all the reverse. In fact, if anything, it's protective. And so we put together a program that we thought would optimize DNA methylation, protect us from some of these diseases of aging, and be able to offset our need to rely on isolated vitamins. I prescribe vitamins all the time as a physician, but now I tend to go a little bit lower dose. I might go for a shorter duration. So we created this program, flat forward to 2017. So we actually released the program as an ebook. I lectured on the program at IFM, and I actually lectured on it around the world. Other functional clinicians were interested in what we were thinking about and starting to think about epigenetics. But a niggling question was, are we actually changing epigenetics? And at the time, you can't send somebody off to Quest Laboratory for an epigenetic workup. They're just not available to clinicians. And so I was given an unrestricted grant by Metagenics to study it. And we hired the Health Gut Research Institute at my alma mater, NUNM, to run the study. And it was an 8-week-long intervention. We looked at middle-aged men. Middle age is when DNA methylation tends to get wonky. Genetic expression tends to grow wonkier with age. And so that was the population that we wanted to look at. And Metagenics gave us, the funding in order to do it. Extraordinarily, and this was beyond our expectation, at the end of the 8 weeks, as compared to our control group, we saw that we reversed biological age using a DNA methylation clock, which we can talk about, but we saw that we reversed biological age by over 3 years on our study participants. And this was unprecedented. This hadn't been demonstrated before. And as a result, our study got quite a bit of attention. I just want to touch on the fact that aging, so biological aging, is the biggest risk factor for the chronic diseases, for cancer, for dementia, for cardiovascular disease, for diabetes. And so reversing biological age should, by extension, reduce risk for these diseases. And what I have observed in my read on the literature is, as I said earlier, when you look at epigenetic expression, aging actually looks a lot like these diseases. Like you see the same sort of deterioration happening on the epigenome. So it was, it was a pretty extraordinary finding. And that was in 2019, actually, at McGill. I was working with Moshe Sef at McGill University, and Josh Middledorf was our biostatistician helping with our clock analysis. And that was just before COVID hit. And then shortly thereafter, I was asked to actually write the program up for consumers, and that's the Younger You book.